Craig Schulte, Aaron Carlson, Ben Peters, myself, and Michael Gary, Kim Dunsmore at home, and our city attorney Chris Hood is here as well. So we are all set. Anyone here for open forum? I'm thinking not. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. Everyone okay with the meeting minutes and bills?
Yeah, should we add this to the consent, or is this something we actually have to vote on?
Can we put that in the consent agenda?
The
fireworks
fireworks?
application?
Yeah, you already approved it, but not with this person. as the
Oh, okay.
licensee.
So we can just,
We can.
okay.
All right, so we will add the edited fireworks application to the consent agenda, and then along with that was the golf hires. Anyone
Yeah.
would like to make a motion on that?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's everybody.
Yay.
And there we go. We're ready with that. Next up is the Walters setback variance.
Mhm.
So, Michael, any
Yeah,
comments on
I thought that went quite well. Mr. Walters is here if anybody has any questions, but, you know, at planning and zoning, the rear neighbor there was here and chatted, and we came to a good accord, I felt, to adjust the setback a few feet, but it made a difference to the rear neighbor, and so it felt like we came to a good accord. So yeah, I feel like it was right in there.
Because that was the only issue with it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we looked at it, or when I walked it and was looking at it with the newer house that's there, I mean, it would make sense to be at the 10-foot, because that would make it at the same level, and it would look, you wouldn't know that it was so close to that back setback. But then the neighbor was just saying like, you know, that's where I blow all my snow, and, you know, there's gonna be all sorts of rocks and whatnot, and so some adjustment was made to accommodate that, and Mr. Scully was happy, and Mr. Walters was happy, and they, yeah, just seemed like a good deal all around.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Or okay, would anyone like to make a motion on this?
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve resolution 2023-11. Oh, wait, is that, no, -10, sorry, the Walters setback variance.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and that was everyone. So, approved.
Great, awesome.
Thank you, all of you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Mr. Walters, take care.
All righty. Then, it's Mr. Nelson's turn with the vacation rental. So I've been talking to Mike about this for a while, and I've brought it up for many months here and there, like where we're at. Are we participating in this whole process? Now the process is done for the county, and I wanted us to take a look through and understand it, with the question being to join this. Right now, you know, the city is not a part of this in any way, shape, or form, and there's just one line item that basically removes us out of it, exempts us out.
The B.
So Tim can give us the info, we can ask questions, and then decide where we want to be. It doesn't have to be this tonight, but.
Oh, good. Greetings, hello, thank
Hi.
you. Am I up?
Yeah,
You're up.
you are. Would you
Okay.
like to officially introduce
You're
yourself?
swinging away.
My name is Timothy Nelson. I am the Director of Land Services for Cook County. And to kind of chime a little bit into the indication that somehow the county is done or completed the process, it is never done. This is something that has been on the plate for discussions for many, many years. We have had now a couple iterations of our ordinance, and I'll just go ahead and give you the the down and dirty basically of where we stand right now. We had actually initiated a process in 2015. We determined at that point not to do anything. Started another process in 2018, decided, no, we're not going to do anything. But then feedback and comments from the public surfaced enough for us to say, okay, by 2019 into 2020 is when we finally took the first step. So I'll just go ahead and run through the PowerPoint, and we'll have any questions. Yep, okay, good. So starting in 2018, in that one, we did basically surveyed all the different counties in the state of Minnesota and determined, what are you doing with them? And some places are vacation or are destinations, some places are not. And so basically, you see by that green bar up on top, and subsequent surveys to the same folks have indicated the same results. Basically, is that most counties do not regulate them at all. And then the next level down is that orange bar halfway down. They would regulate them, but it's through interim use or a conditional use permit process. And that largely depends on the number of operations you're dealing with. And so I'll just show from 1984 to 2020, we were in that second bar, which is generally permitted. We had considered them permitted in the specific zones that we had indicated they were permitted, but they didn't require any kind of admin permit or anything. We just considered them to be generally permitted. And that was the way all the way up until 2000. And then since 2000, we've gone down to an annual license for us. And we initiated that program January 1st of 2020. After much discussion and feedback and such, and as I indicated, I'll get into numbers and such later, but the reason we went towards the annual license is it gives us a flexibility to be able to address it on a year-to-year basis, whereas if you issue a conditional use permit, that turns into a property right, and then it goes in perpetuity, plus the numbers that we have, which are a few hundred of them, we couldn't process that many in our planning commission rotation. And some counties, Lake County does interim use permits, and so they just kind of keep rotating through. We just couldn't handle that kind of logistic flow through with the numbers that we have. And also with the annual license, we find that we are able to generate a pretty stable level of revenue that allows us, and in fact this year we increased that is allowing us to afford the a position to administer the whole program and to do enforcements on that. So the purpose and intent. I don't know.
Can I ask you one quick question?
Yes.
Based on that. So you're saying that not many counties do. Is that because a lot of cities do? I mean, we know Two Harbors does, Duluth does. Other cities regulate it. Is that why counties don't necessarily step in on this as much?
Well, when we were starting back in about 2015, 2016 timeframe, we actually had a presentation at our county's conference. We're governed under different statutes. We're 394, you guys are 462. And we had the city of Minneapolis give us a presentation. And their experiences are similar to what everybody else experiences. It's whack-a-mole. You try to enforce on somebody, they pull their advertising out, they advertise under some other place. You can never really catch up to them. They were really pulling their hair out. And one of the biggest difficulties is identifying the operations out there. So we didn't specifically, because we're dealing with the counties, we didn't include the cities in on those surveys, but the kind of ad hoc information that we did receive is that there isn't, it's kind of similar. A lot of the cities don't, and more so because they're not destination. So you have to really kind of be a destination in order for them to do that, or have a lot of rentals on the short term, STRs. See, we call them vacation rentals because people come up for vacation and such, but they're otherwise kind of denoted as short-term rentals.
Yep.
Yeah. So the purpose and intent, and you always have to sit back, and Mike, you even chimed in on participating in some of our approaches, and it kind of goes to the basic bottom line there, and I remember him stating this, is well, what's the point? What are we trying to achieve? Why are we doing this? And so our discussions when we first kicked it off and adopted our first ordinance were really around the fact, we recognize the fact that they're here, they're actually good, they provide revenue, they provide income, they provide additional places for people to stay. However, we did recognize that, and this was more the case in the first time that we went through this, is that they can have potential adverse impacts to the surrounding property. So ours are predominantly allowed in the residential zone districts. And so you can have easily conflicting land uses with traffic, noise, parking, trespass, that kind of thing. So we wanted to, the goal of this is in paragraph B, we wanted to continue to allow the use of private vacation rental homes in the identified zone districts, but also mitigate for possible adverse impacts to protect, and this is the language they use in all ordinances, the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding properties. And in that sense, okay, so that's what we do. That's, we try to be specific, but that's a little ambiguous. What does that mean? So we address then through the specific provisions dealing with specific issues that we might run across, or that we know we have run across. And really, looking at the numbers and looking at how many we have, and this is what every jurisdiction has to struggle through. I did a presentation down in Duluth. We had Duluth in there and some of the other areas up through the range and such. And it's the definition. What is it? What is it? What is a short-term rental? Okay, so we really struggled with this because we are an eclectic community and we have a lot of different kind of unique operations, the way people want to handle what it is they're doing. And so we basically started, okay, it's a less than a 30-day period of time. It's not a bed and breakfast. We have a whole nother category for bed and breakfasts. So this is less than a 30-day period of time, not a bed and breakfast. And then we had to throw in and exclude similarly described premises which are managed and regulated as a part of a hotel or resort. So there are a lot of operations we have in the county, Caribou Highlands, for example, that has units that are within the resort complex but are not managed by the front desk at all. And so they are required by the Minnesota Department of Health to get their own licenses. And we felt at that time, because we were just starting off with the program, if the Minnesota Department of Health insists on licensing them individually, we probably should be involved as well. So we're still kicking around. That's the biggest item that we're looking at and going to evaluate between now and next year is what do we do with this whole resort-based vacation rental things. We do definitely want to treat them different. There's different issues involved with them. Being in a resort commercial zone district, it's understood that there's going to be more noise, more traffic, and more density anyway. So we just have that to kind of figure out over the rest of this year. And I have a little asterisk down at the bottom of the page that says the Minnesota Department of Health defines the vacation rentals or short-term rentals as lodging establishments that rent accommodations for a period of less than 7 days in duration. So that's different from us. We go 30 days, Minnesota Department of Health is 7 days. And that kind of tees up some of the requirements that we have here. So a requirement that we have with getting a license is that the property owner needs to have liability insurance, and they have to self-acknowledge that in the application process. And what we did in order to get these kind of requirements is, again, we did poll different communities that are out there and see what they had, looked at different ordinances and operations, and included cities in on that as well. So liability insurance, and then we have this requirement that they have to demonstrate that they have a license from the Minnesota Department of Health, or if they don't have one, that they don't need one, and why is that? And so by and large, people that come to us and are required to have a license and don't have a Minnesota Department of Health license are because they are between 7 and 30 days. So Minnesota Department of Health doesn't require above 7 days. We require less than 30 days. We don't require above 30 days. That's longer term rental. So that gap in there, Minnesota Department doesn't license, but we do still.
So if somebody rented by the week, for example, the Department of Health wouldn't require a license.
See, and every situation, and we've learned that people try to tweak the system. There's always, okay, well, I'm going to do it for this and that and the other. And we get plenty of people that will say, well, I know they're doing it for less than a week, and I know that. Okay, so we have a good working relationship with the Minnesota Department of Health, and we let the Minnesota Department of Health staff regulate their 7-day issue, and so it's like, okay, you need to talk to the Minnesota Department of Health, you need to get that letter from them, something in writing, an email or something from them indicating that you don't need a license. So it's up to them to prove that. And then we just have the catch-all of the information that's required on the vacation rental application. So prohibitions, you look all over the country and all over the world. I mean, this is everywhere, right? So you see vacation rentals or short-term rentals in boats and in campers and, all over the place, no matter what. So we basically have a few prohibitions, and we said no vacation rental operations in recreational vehicles. And that would include boats and things like that of a temporary nature. No vacation rental operations will be allowed in any accessory structure except a guest cabin. So you can't just have a garage and have that as a vacation rental and such like that. But we do allow yurts, and that is again one category that the Minnesota Department of Health doesn't necessarily license, but we do. So we allow yurts because we have a unique kind of community and characteristics in here, and so we do allow for that, but they have to achieve all the other standards with septic and everything else.
So in that sense, you're covering what the state Department of Health would have been concerned with?
Right, yeah. As a matter of fact, in this last go-around where we made tweaks, we had this darn near year-long committee going, 20-some-odd people and everything, and looked through our provisions. We took on more of the responsibility that the Minnesota Department of Health was handling, more so because our environmental health person had been hip deep in mopping up our lakeshore septic compliance program. So we had a lot of systems and a lot of things to have to check and to get under control. We had suspended that program to be able to mop that up. Now that we've got that handled, we're going back and saying, okay, we'll handle the septics and the lake water systems. And we allow no more than 2 vacation rental licenses per residential property. And the DNR shoreland rules and our ordinance allows for a cabin or a dwelling and a guest cabin on a property. So they can have 2, you can have 2, you can rent both. Okay, so property contact information, we made a change in this. This is all the same language in there, and we require that there would be somebody that could be able to respond. Originally, we said you got to respond within a 3-hour period of time or whatever the case may be, but understanding that actual action might take a little longer. But that left the door open for absentee owners to say, yeah, give me a call and I'll respond and say, yeah, I understand, and then take 2 weeks to get to something to be done. So we actually made that change in this update of the ordinance that started this last year, that an owner must be able to, or manager, have to physically respond to a complaint within 3 hours of being notified of the problem. So we wanted some form of local management associated with that. We put the requirement into in this current go around for an informational placard. What we had run into is there were a lot of comments where people who were renting them had no idea where they were. If there was an emergency, they'd call the sheriff's office and they had no idea what their address was or anything. There was a problem with the septic system, they had no idea who to call. And so we put the requirement on there that we put into place an informational placard with all of that pertinent information on there so that they would know and we would know that they would know that it's all covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big requirements for us that adds in a lot more is again the septic certificate of compliance and the surface water supply. So the Minnesota Department of Health doesn't allow surface water supply, but we are working with them to have standards because we know that some people do have surface water systems up here. And again, we're trying to accommodate for the eclectic lifestyles that we have up here. That we work with the Minnesota Department of Health to have standards to work with lake water systems, and that there has to be potable water associated with it, whether it's carry-in or whatever, but everything has to be clearly labeled. And MDH has worked with us well, and we do it on a case-by-case basis. We only have maybe a dozen or a few more than that. That is, so out of the several hundred that we have, it's a very small percentage.
Going back up to septic,
Yes.
do they all have to have a septic system?
They have to have a certificate of compliance, which
Okay.
means if they have a system in and if they have pressurized water to the dwelling, they have to have a system.
Okay.
If they have carry-in water, if it's a yurt and you carry it in, then you can carry it out. If they have a porta pot, if they have a composting toilet, all they need to do is to make sure that that is inspected and given a certificate of compliance. So we'll take a look at a property when they give put the application in, and in our records, if you have a certificate of compliance for whatever system you have, you're good to go. If you don't, or if your certificate of compliance is 10 years overdue, then you need a new inspection. That's one of the things that we ran into with the Minnesota Department of Health, is that they would accept a certificate of compliance and just let it go at that, but that certificate of compliance could be 25 years old, and that system could be just puking all over the ground, and none's the wiser, right? So we say you have to have a current certificate of compliance, which brings everybody then up to date. So if we inspect it, though, we give the same allowance that the State of Minnesota Pollution Control Agency gives, is if it's a simple failure, you have 2 years to be able to correct that failure and fix the system. We don't immediately shut them down. But if it's an imminent threat to public health, you got 10 days to correct that. So. Other county level requirements, you got to pay the lodging tax. That's one of the issues that we'd had in the first go around, was that we had complaints for conflicting uses in the residential areas, but then we also had complaints with mom and pop resorts saying, hey, it's unfair competition, they're not paying their lodging taxes, blah, blah, blah. So we got that requirement, and we're still trying to hone in a better system to be able to work with our level of permitting and licensing program and an e-permitting basis, and work with the auditor's office to get that lodging tax in, because around the county there's several different lodging tax districts that make it a little difficult to work with. So we also made it non-transferable. Originally we had it where if you sold the property during the license time, that license could transfer over, but you could be going from somebody who knows the issues, knows the requirements, selling it to somebody who has no idea about the requirements. So we say, okay, no, you gotta yourself, if you're buying the property, you gotta apply for a license for you to run that. Conformance with other requirements, so all the other zoning type requirements that we have associated with it. And then again, the property contact information. So this is interesting, and I know it's very difficult to see. I added some of these in before coming, and this is where are they located. And if you look, and I don't know why they did this, we use host compliance with them, and we had, went out on RFPs, and they were successful. They put in this e-licensing program for us, and they run this, and they did all the they have these web bots that go out and search for all the Airbnb and all the different advertising, and then they put them into an inventory, and then we give them to us, and then we try to ground truth them, and we've worked with our assessor's office, and we think we've worked with our assessor's office sufficiently that we probably don't need host compliance any longer on that. We can do it internally. But if you look, they, for some reason, have a dark green background, and then the light green spots are the vacation rental operation. So it's very difficult to see, but if you
Nice
see, it's
contrast.
yeah. So you can see where the non-compliant ones are, but you can't really see where the compliant ones. But basically, they're all pretty much located, the vast majority of them along the shoreline, along the North Shore, and then up the trails in different particular areas around lakes. So we got those, and we even have a snapshot of the city of Grand Marais, and good luck finding all of the light green dots. Now, we have gone out there and we've ground truthed them for the county. We've not done any of that for the city. So this is not, I wouldn't call this reliable information, but it's just an indication of ones that are out there. How many they are, we don't know. So they would have to be officially just kind of really ground truth to be able to pick that up. And like I said, with with the position that we're adding, that's kind of the number one job for that individual, is to go and beat the bushes and make sure we've got everybody in, you know, because there's people who love to try to fly under the radar, and so we want everybody to be on a level playing field with regards to that. So looking at our numbers, when host compliance originally did the inventory, they came up with 377 operations. Now again, that's based off of definitions. If we were to use our most liberal definition of it, we'd have over 600 and some. So the fact that we winnowed out, you know, these and that and the other, we got down to 377 that they came up with. We've not really, up until this year, we've not licensed more than 300. We've been up to the top of almost 300 now. You know, we still had anticipated that the number was about 360, give or take, of those that are licensed and those that need to be licensed, right? So we know there's operations out there that still need to be licensed. So what we did in our latest round of updates in our program evaluation is we came up with triggers. People wanted us to put caps on it and say, you know, there's just too many, we got to stop and throttle back. So just take a left-hand turn for a second here. As I said, the first time we went through this back in 2019 or 2018 through 2020, the biggest thing was the impacts on the local area in terms of adverse impacts, road traffic, trespass, all that kind of stuff. In this last go around last year, the biggest thing that had come up was the lack of housing. And there was the big thought that vacation rentals are taking up all of the affordable or available housing that we have. Well, as it turns out, our assessor, and even in conjunction with the HRA guy, did a study on that, and we found over the few years that they evaluated these numbers, we actually lost a net of one vacation rental operation. So we found that they've stayed pretty much consistent, but it's been the second homes that have impacted the availability of housing as much, and the increased number of people that want to come here. So we found that we don't necessarily have to put a cap on, but we put a trigger on, and that trigger is if we hit these points, that's when we're going to talk about it again. So we thought we're going to use the 358 plus a 10% number, which comes up to 393. If we hit that 393, we're going to talk about caps and triggers again. And then we thought, okay, we could never hit that. So what are we going to do if we don't hit that? So we added a second trigger, which is going to be January 2nd of 2024. So we will be talking about it. We're not going to hit that 393 number, but so we will be talking about it in January of this next year. Then we're going to determine what we're going to do. And again, the biggest thing that we're being faced with at this point in time is the distinction and delineation between the resort-based vacation rentals and the home-based vacation rentals.
So are you saying, excuse me, but are you saying, is this in effect right now? Or
Yes,
not?
it is.
Okay. So you have, how many licensed operations do you have right now then, that have came in, there you go, 317?
Yep, 317.
Why do I keep hearing there's like 600 out there then?
Well, 600 is only if you back up in time and you use the most liberal interpretation of what one is. So we
Well-
ran through the definitions, but.
Yeah, I know, but I
Yeah.
mean,
So
if
using our
somebody's
definition, there's only 377, 360. max.
short-term, so if somebody's renting something short-term, I'm just trying to get at,
Does that number?
I'm just getting at like a 50%, you're like 100% off. I'm not accused, I'm just
I have the same
I'm just trying to get a
question.
handle on
Yeah.
this, because there's,
So. okay,
What
a
gets
lot-
you to 600?
how many have we
Not?
identified? I mean, how many can you identify if you're hiring somebody to go through and pick off all of these places that are on VRBO, getting advertised, blah, 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 blah? You're saying you have 317.
We have 317 this year. This is the highest number that we've licensed. And when I
That
say.
you've licensed, yeah.
Yeah, and when I say it's in the definition, it truly is in the definition. And that 600, I wish we would have never even mentioned that number, because what that does include is that includes all of the individually owned units inside any of the resorts. So
Okay.
they
Good.
are.
Well, that's okay, that's
Okay,
pretty
that-
explainable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
That are
a-
doing
just say it.
short term.
Well,
Yeah.
you just explain it a few times and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, now that I can see how you get to that.
It is a haunting number, like, oh my God, and it doesn't include though the city of Grand Marais.
So
Those are
this
the-
number then basically is the standalone, non-resort owned facility, like somebody who has a cabin on the lake that's VRBOing it, that's one of the 317 that's licensed.
That is
Not
correct.
owned by a lodge or resort.
That is correct, and that would include those individually owned units in resorts that are not managed by the resort.
That are not, okay.
Right. So like Caribou Highlands, there are some
Right.
in Bluefin Bay even, that they're
Okay.
managed differently. And it is, we can see where it is a huge problem for the resort itself, because somebody's going there to rent, they feel like, oh, I just go to the front desk if I got a problem, but they
Right.
can't, because they're not managing those.
Right.
So, but yeah, so let's just completely forget about the 600 plus.
I know, but that number was thrown out there a
I
long
know
time
it
ago,
is.
and it just stuck in my head, so when I saw that, it's like, wait a minute. We gotta
Yeah.
talk about this.
Never
for a
goes
second.
away. So what I will say is the 317, we do anticipate or kind of expect that there are about 360 that are licensed or should be licensed. So that the difference between 317 and 360 is what our guy's going to go.
Try
back
to
look at.
identify it,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We're going to have a pretty intensive effort with the assessor's office and with the inventories that we do have to try to weed these things out.
And then bring them into compliance
Yeah.
of your rules and regulations, okay. I was just curious about that.
Yep, so we originally started, and again, we started our ordinance in 2020, and we put a mandated sunset on that ordinance because we wanted to force ourselves to reevaluate. So we knew that, and you just know that when you adopt something, other burning issues come up, and it's easy to put it aside. So if we hadn't put that 3-year time frame in, we probably wouldn't have been revisiting it. So we put it in, it was gonna drop dead at the end of this last year, so we had to get a new ordinance put into place, which is by and large the same as the old ordinance, and we just tweaked it. And we do consider this as a living, breathing issue, and we know that the dynamics are gonna change over the next 5, 10, 15 years or so, and we understand that. But this at least is gonna keep us going for now, and we'll see how this works with this individual being able to really address any of the nonconformities that are out there. And the implementation, when we started it, it was $200 per license, and now it's $400 per license. And so it does make it to be the only position in the department, maybe the county, I'm not sure, that pays for itself. So it is a fully funded position, go team. So it makes it a little easier to pass that by the Board of Commissioners to get that adopted.
And is that 400 annually?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's why it's a good, consistent, and one of the reasons why we went with a license as opposed to an interim use permit. Love that flexibility. We can change the standards, like I said, to kind of tweak them in between the years,
Mhm.
and gives us a consistent, reliable revenue source. And it's not a burden on the tax levy. And that was one of the big concerns that had been expressed. I put that, if anybody saw that, I'm sure everybody saw it because it was one of the largest survey results that I got back. I put that survey out early on last year to everybody in the county about the thoughts and considerations for vacation rentals. We got 560 results back. So that you can tell it was a hot topic, very emotional, in terms of certainly if you're neighbors to one and you're getting some conflicting uses, it's going to be a concern to you. So
Yeah.
that's where we are.
So if you're not going to use this software anymore, what's the process? I know you said the assessor's office is going to be helping with this, but what is that process to identify? What will they do how will they tackle that identifying?
How to identify properties.
Yeah, and that is what we're kind of wrestling with. We
Word of mouth.
We haven't, well, and we get a lot of that.
I'm kinda thinking
Certainly,
you do.
we've had a lot of referrals, and there are a lot of operations that are out there that hadn't come in on that software company because they put their web bots out there, but even their web bots, they are only on the very large sites. They did not and will not scrub CVR, the Cascade Vacation Rentals, which is our largest vacation rental management company. They don't look at their site. So we had developed a very good working relationship with them to be able to get all of their numbers and their operations. But yeah, that is an issue that we're wrestling with is, okay, how do we continue on with this? Because right now, our assessor, Bob, he's all in. He's developed a really good web page front to be able to work with these and work with the numbers and such like that. But if we get anyone else in there, that, you know, they may not be so enthralled with that.
Right.
So we're looking at, do we use them? We hope to not really use them. They were really good in the very beginning, but they have sold out to a larger company, so they're just a subsidiary. They don't seem to have that level of customer service and response that we were experiencing to begin with. So that's kind of why we've soured on them a little bit. So we do know that there are other up-and-coming companies that do kind of the same thing. We might put out on RFPs again. We don't know. You know, we do know that with the days are gonna start getting shorter in less than 2 weeks, we have to figure that out pretty quick. The end of the year will be coming on us in no time.
Right.
Other questions?
Yeah, one question. Have you had to step in and mitigate any complaints? And if so, is there a process involved in that?
Yeah, we do in our ordinance have kind of an outline, and we do have policy in which we go. But we frankly have not. Most of the calls, we have a 1-800 number, call line on our website, and that's part of our package through this host compliance, because they can call 24/7, and we don't respond 24/7, but they at least get the information and get it to us. And direct them to law enforcement if it's any kind of emergency type of issue. But the greatest use that we've had out of that line has been for requests for information on how to license a vacation rental, not complaints about other vacation rentals. So,
Just out of curiosity, were the neighbors given that information?
given which information?
The 800 number, or just how generally how this is gonna work?
Yeah, it's been on the website, and we've publicized it, but of course, that's one of the difficult things, you know, in any of this, is making sure everybody knows what it is. We would like to have a more visible front on our website and on our department page about it, but we don't necessarily control that aspect of it. So we try to work with IT to get it more highlighted, and of course, we have Todd as a public information officer, so we do try to get that out. And again, if we pull back out from our agreement with host compliance, then that number goes away too. So we'll have to figure something else out if we want to perpetuate that.
It's my anecdotal over the years. First was at the store when people would walk in and, you know, nobody and the toilet's backed up or whatever that, you know, issue is, and who would obviously know who to call, but we wouldn't have known who to call either to, which, I mean, you didn't have it in place anyways, but that could still keep happening all the time. Or then now I have people talking to me, neighbors, saying, yeah, somebody comes up, they're trying to find out they're lost, they don't even know how to find the place, or they run into certain issues, and right in the moment they come back and look to us to help. Well, then they should have that number say, look, if you're having problems, I'd love to be nice, but here's who you have to call, kind of thing, you know, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't necessarily be just the people renting who would want to timely, and most people, you know, I think they really do want to be nice about it when people, you know, when people are coming. They might not feel really nice about a party or something at 2 a.m., but the rest of it, I mean, they want to be kind of the people who are renting too, on that. I don't know if we want to take any action tonight, or you guys want to think about it, or whatever. What would be the action required for the city to join this process?
Well, I think we would have to start kind of a discussion about it in terms of what you guys like or don't like about our ordinance. If you know, there are provisions that may apply outside of the city limits that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to apply with inside the city limits.
Well, R1 zone, we have a zone
Yeah.
that we've established.
That
But-
doesn't permit it.
Huh?
That does not permit it.
Correct.
Right.
But we have all the.
So
rest.
we'd have to change that wording, you know?
Well, I just look
Why?
at their ordinance and think, if one of the purposes of us working through their system is not to create a second system, but just to have the same for everybody in the county, then I think we'd probably just accept a lot of those things that don't really apply to us. But we would have to go through and make some modifications to their ordinance so that it did include the things that do apply to us that maybe don't to them. And that would include our list of zones, be organized the same way. Here's where it's allowed, here's where it's conditional use.
Within the city of Grand Marais.
So
Well,
back
and
to
we-
his, discussion point, I think we need to talk about how we would intend to do this. Would we intend to just try to modify the county's ordinance and then we wouldn't even have one in the city limits? Is that even a possibility? We got some homework to do.
Yeah.
And
Why-
then after
why
we do
would-
our homework, we have to figure out who's, we'll have to step in and do some work to help them make changes so that it would work for us.
Why would we even suggest a separate ordinance for us? I mean, I would assume, when I read the one before, all it was a sentence that's explicitly X'd us out of the conversation. If that's removed, then we're part of it and we're in following the same guidelines, short of a zoning list, but that's, I mean, what else would really need to be different?
They're referring to statutory authorizations that aren't ours.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to do that homework and make sure that the statutory authorization base is covered, that we're actually allowed to regulate the things that they're regulating. It's just some legal homework that we would need to do.
So we'll get Mr. Hood involved?
That's for sure one of the calls we'll make if you want to do this. We may also want to go back and call HKGI for a little planning help too, with the actual ordinance work, just to make sure that we don't put any burden on the county to make these changes. That's what I would recommend. And then I think the timing of it is, we start talking now, but our goal would be they're gonna look in January. They're reopening the conversation anyway, and we've got a package that we've talked to them about and we're ready to go with for whatever changes they might wanna make. At that
Seems
time,
reasonable.
that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm for like ASAP, but whatever.
We
I
can try to-
don't actually see any usefulness for us in the city at all with this, but,
Can I stop you for a second?
you're going to.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna look at Chris and Mike. First of all, you do short stay rentals, right?
Yep.
So, do we have a conflict of interest in conversation at this point, or no? I just wanna know.
I don't think there's a legal conflict of interest, and
Okay.
Chris, you'll have to weigh in
I
on
don't-
that. If he's a potential licensee, he's regulated the same way as anybody else would be. The rest of that question, though, as it's typically asked,
Right.
that's up to you to decide. And what do you think about that, Chris?
That's, I think, the right analysis, Mike. Typically I would need a little more information about what the situation is, but if you have someone that is similarly situated, related to a regulation that's gonna apply citywide, that doesn't necessarily rise to the level of a conflict of interest that would cause recusal.
Okay, just wanna be clear.
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's all. Sorry, Ben, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, so, we've done these through conditional use, so people
Right.
have known that. And they come in and they pay the fee and they do the dance and they come to planning and zoning and they talk about, and they sell the product and then they come to the city council. And we've done that for years. And now we're gonna just now we're gonna just roll them in and say, now you're gonna pay $400 a year too.
Fine with me. And I'm in on lodging tax collection because it does benefit the city. Those dollars do get spent in our city.
But they do pay lodging tax.
Well, but now we're gonna make sure they do. And I also hear anecdotally of people who aren't coming in and doing the right thing. And I would like the effort and time spent to find those people, and I've already heard of some. And no effort is being made on this part. Now we'll have, Mike has said from day one, because we started talking about this 2016, whatever. And rightly so, you've always said, it's just one more thing on the plate to regulate and watch, it's too much, okay. Now we actually have a person who will be funded to do this and take care of it.
Mhm.
And so I support that. I mean, I get what Mike was saying, and now that issue is taken care of. And I don't think it hurts anything. You can still keep doing what you're doing, but now you're going to pay $400, which is absolutely nothing relative to rates, nightly and whatever rates people pay for this.
Mhm, 2
And
days.
we'll get a few more things watched and taken care of, including like when there's problems. So I totally support it, but I'm sorry I interrupted you, so you probably had a lot more to
So
say.
Well, my question is, so right now, how does the city have a handle on this? Through conditional use permit application?
Not entirely.
Okay.
We also have zones where it's just allowed.
It's just allowed,
And then
okay.
we have zones where it's not allowed.
Right.
Correct.
And so the vast majority of time and effort that we spend on this is fielding calls from prospective realtors and buyers who want to know, can I vacation rental this?
Can I do this,
We get
right?
that call. A daily may not be an exaggeration.
So then how are we triggering the fact that some of these places are or are not paying the bed tax?
We don't.
Okay.
And I think the tougher question, and the one that Tracy was referring to, is how do we know, are they operating in a legal place or not? And we have dealt with that with a few folks, right? Particularly when the conversation started up.
Yeah, we-
We knew that they were just beginning, but they were in places where we weren't going to allow that. Our zoning didn't include that as an allowed use.
Okay.
And we went through some conversations to get them to stop. Are we confident we got them all? Not at all. And what would it take to do that? Just exactly what they're doing. Fund a position whose job it is to go out and do the investigating and do the ground truthing and follow up on all the details. Do they have all the things, requirements met? Are they paying the lodging taxes? The strategy that they've selected is the one I would recommend if we wanted to get more involved in that.
Yeah.
Michael, Aaron, any other questions, comments?
No, I think,
So I can see either a work session or another time, and we have to talk about some
Yeah,
things
for sure.
Mhm.
to do this or to make something apply to us or not apply to us, or at least we've seen what the county's doing.
yeah.
Well, I'll work with Chris on just some of the preliminary homework we need to do in any case.
Okay.
And then we can come back and schedule a conversation to continue.
Sounds good. Sounds pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Next up is the bonds for our Fifth Street work, and I assume that's gonna be online, since we had no more extra special guests in person.
We had one join us, though. I see him up there.
Dun, dun, dun. Mr. Kimmel.
I like to think that I'm extra special.
You are tonight.
Mike, did you want to do any lead off, Mike?
Hey, guess what's going on in our city these days? Fifth Avenue is being reconstructed. Yeah. It's
They have
a lot
a-
of fun.
There's a huge, you see that rock pile they have over there? Holy,
I did, as a matter of fact.
where'd all those rocks come from? Underneath that pavement?
It's,
Where is it?
Right on the hill going up from the gunfire.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, wow. I'll have to do a look.
In any case, we're involved in this county road construction project because we are taking the opportunity, as you all know, to replace the water and the wastewater systems that are also included in the right-of-way. Most of them are at the age where we would consider replacing them anyhow, but you don't want to miss that opportunity when you're digging up the road to think about doing this as well. It's really the most efficient way in terms of cost to get the work done. And we've been planning for this for some time, and our original budget for it was around $1 million. And as you know, things in the past 3 years have not followed according to budget's plans, so the actual cost is more like $1.8 million. And we were never planning on paying cash for it in any case. We were
Right.
always going to do this next step. So thanks for joining us tonight, Bruce Kimmel from Ehlers, our financial advisors, whom we work with whenever we borrow money.
All right, well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Mayor and council members. When you mentioned Fifth Avenue just now, I just had a blast from the past. Do any of you remember those Fifth Avenue candy bars from?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
They were like peanut butter crisp or something. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
according to eBay, or according to Amazon, if you used your $1.765 million of bond proceeds to buy Fifth Avenue candy bars, instead you could get approximately 1.3 million candy bars.
Nice.
So, that was just good information in case you didn't want to pay for your
Well,
custodian.
yeah, water, sewer, candy bars.
It's tough.
Well, I'm just going to be referring to the pre-sale report that I believe was part of your council packet.
Right.
Please stop me if you have any questions along the way. I won't go through it all in detail, but I'll try to hit some high points, and again, if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. This discussion isn't really legally binding in any way, shape, or form. It's more of an opportunity for you to get your arms around this financing, make sure you understand our financing strategy on behalf of the city, and to get the green light from you to move forward to the sale on July 12th. So look forward to hearing what thoughts or concerns you might have. So starting on the main substantive page, as Mike mentioned, we're looking at issuing about $1.84 million of general obligation utility revenue bonds. And what this means is that while the bonds will be repaid with revenues from your utility system, they will also be backed with the full faith and credit of the city. And so that's what's called a double barrel pledge. And it gets the best interest rates because the bondholders know that if for some reason your utility revenues aren't sufficient to pay the debt service in full, you'll also raise taxes or use other funds as necessary to pay on time and in full. Now, of course, we don't expect anything to go wrong with your utility revenues, but I just wanted to explain how you've really got sort of two pledges going on here with this bond issue. We are looking at a term of just over 15 years, so 15 principal payments, and those would be in February 1 of the years 2025 through, I'm sorry, there's a typo here, that should be 2033, my apologies. And so that would really correspond essentially to the preceding fiscal years of fiscal 2024 through 2032. And you will be paying interest every 6 months on the bonds and then paying principal on the dates that I just outlined. And we will get an updated version of this report to you just with those correct dates. In addition, you will have the ability, so I misspoke there again. It's not 2025 through 2033, it's 2038. I really apologize for that, but you will have the ability to prepay the bonds on 2033 or any day thereafter. So if you have excess revenues in your utility funds, or if there's an opportunity to refinance the last few maturities, or whatever the case might be, you will have prepayment flexibility that will be at your sole discretion. So not at the bondholders. You'll get to decide whether and when to refinance. Otherwise, your debt service will be fixed as of the date of sale next month. There is a little quirk in the federal tax law called bank qualification that will allow you to get an even better interest rate than normal tax exempt rates, because essentially banks that buy your bonds will not only have tax-exempt interest, but they'll have another tax incentive to do that. So that translates to a lower interest rate for you. And we are intending to get a credit rating for the bonds from S&P Rating Service as well. Moving on to the next page, unless you want me to go into the nitty-gritty of continuing disclosure and arbitrage rebate, I won't. But I did want to note that we will be doing a competitive sale for this offering. So with the offering statement or official statement and or OS, as it's often known, and with the credit rating from S&P, these bonds will be very well situated to attract bids not only from underwriting firms here in Minnesota, but in Chicago and points further afield, including, believe it or not, there's a number of investment banks in Florida, in Tennessee, other states that have customers in Minnesota that really want bonds from Minnesota. So we believe, and we have the data to show it, that the best rates, especially for very straightforward bond issues like this one, come from putting it out to the national marketplace and seeing who has the best overall interest rate proposal for the city on the date of sale. Moving on to the next page, there are just a few other players involved. You've used the firm of Hugh Rock as bond counsel for your most recent bond issues. They're a solid firm, and they have a good attorney named Justin Reppy who will be working on the resolutions from this point forward. The resolution really does two main things. It says that this is a legally valid and binding obligation of the city of Grand Marais, and that the interest earned on the bonds by the investors is going to be tax exempt. So he'll be working with us and with the city to make sure that he can make those findings. I already mentioned S&P, and then Bond Trust Services is the firm that actually makes the payments in the future from the city to the bondholders, and that is actually a subsidiary of Ehlers. So it's sort of a one-stop shop in that we can advise you on the bond issue, and then also make sure your monies get to the right place going forward. So what we're really looking for you to do here tonight is to, again, ask any questions you might have, and then to approve the resolution that essentially gives us the green light to proceed to the July 12th bond issue. I do have a few other dates here in the calendar, and there are a few estimated debt schedules as well that show you what we're estimating in terms of the sources and uses of funds. You can see how the $1.84 million gets divvied up and yields the exact amount that the city needs to pay the county for this project. And then you can see our estimated debt service of about $160,000 per year. I should note that these rates, these interest rates that we have here, are about 50 basis points or 0.5% over the market. So if you were to sell these bonds today, your average coupon would be closer to 3.2% instead of 3.7%, which is what we have here. But we always like to estimate high and then look really smart on the date of sale. And we are seeing a fair amount of stability in the market right now. So I feel good that we'll be at or under these projections. That's really all I have for you, other than the resolution itself, which again is just a green light to go on to the next step. Do you have any questions for me?
No questions? Okay.
Marais.
Would anyone like to make a resolution or
Motion?
motion? Thank you. For resolution 2023-11, providing the sale of the GO utility revenue bonds.
I would so move,
All right.
since you said it already.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion or questions, anyone?
Yeah.
No?
Nope.
We're all set. All right, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and with that, I as well. We are totally approving this.
Totally.
Thank you, and I'll look forward
Thank you.
to talking with you all again soon.
Yeah,
All right.
we'll be back
Thanks.
Thank you.
middle of July.
No.
Yes, and my hope is actually to be there in person for that, so
Okay.
Very good.
Assuming the fires stay north of the border,
Yeah,
Oh.
oh,
I was gonna say, because you have a short stay.
Right. So,
Okay.
on this topic,
The date,
the work's already begun.
July 10th.
The county has already received a request for payment from the vendor, who has already conducted some of the work that we will be paying for. And so I've been talking to Robbie about what's the best way to process these payments. Our typical schedule is we would receive a monthly pay request from our contractor that would be reviewed and approved by our engineer, and then we would run it through a city council meeting. And so it
Right.
might be 3 weeks after the end of the month before the contractor gets paid. The county's moving a little faster on their payments to the contractor, and they don't want to get stuck having paid for work that we owe money for without our money. So, the MnDot had an answer for this, of course, which was before anything starts, you have to pay us every penny of what we expect to have to pay up front, 2 years in advance, and maybe 5 years later we'll even up with you. The county's much more friendly about it, and we really appreciate that. So what Robbie and I have worked out for now is he will just send periodic pay requests to us, and we have our first one, which is the work that was done up until the last couple of weeks, for $200,425.93. The majority of that money is paying for the installation of temporary water service and actual water mains on the lower block of Fifth Avenue, and a couple of hydrants and a number of water valves. So, if you wouldn't mind approving that, the county would greatly appreciate it. Again,
Well-
$200,425.93.
Well, with that,
200,000 and some cents?
It's 200,425
Or 2.5, okay.
200,000.
and 93 cents.
Oh my God. Okay.
So when is
Well-
he gonna probably get another bill out to us before July 10th?
For sure.
For sure.
It's-
Is he
at
doing
this
monthly
point,
or
It
what is-
might be every meeting,
Every week he's,
every 2 weeks.
Every
every
2
2
weeks,
weeks,
okay.
okay.
But we
So-
only have one more before then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
For July 10th, right?
right?
yep.
So it won't
Okay.
be like on and on and on.
But it might be 2 more. So one of
Okay.
the things we thought about is we actually have the cash in the electric fund right now to pay for this, and
Okay.
should we just lend it to ourselves rather than go out on the market and borrow?
Right.
And for sure, we're doing that for this, cash flow purposes, paying before we get the bond proceeds.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're gonna have other opportunities to take advantage of that program in the near future, so we'll just hold on to that cash for now.
Well,
We've
do you
got 2
need
other
the-
pretty significant multi-million-dollar projects we're currently talking about, this building and the wastewater treatment plants.
Yeah.
Oh, right, I mean, you were all along, you're just taking it from them, but would have put it back in.
Yeah, but we thought instead of going and selling this bond, what if we just
Oh,
loaned
oh, oh.
ourselves $1.8 million from the electric fund and then just came up with a repayment schedule of that? But
Yeah.
No,
not
We,
that.
we got
No.
we got some big things.
yeah. Okay.
Couple of few.
All right, so, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the payment to the county of $200,425.93 for work on the streets?
Maybe we should round. I don't know.
I would have liked to have, but.
Okay. Didn't happen.
This is
with-
engineers
with-
here, they're precise.
Yeah, right. I would make a motion to approve resolution 2023-12.
Oh, it had a
No, this is just a payment request.
Oh,
We're gonna get to that next.
we're gonna get, that's the next thing, so this isn't that.
No,
This is something, well, where is this? Wait a minute.
it's not in the packet.
Here you go.
This is.
Okay, now,
I got it
okay.
from Robbie this week.
All right, well, now I see it, so
Yeah, I need
let's
to
pay
see
that
it.
money, please, and thank you. I would make a motion to pay the county money.
Would anyone like to second that? Do you need the number again?
Is there a number? So there's no number?
No, that's not a resolution.
No. It's just,
Okay, so
we
it
just
doesn't
approve
have-
it.
We just approve it. All right, all
Okay.
in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
So it's already done.
that's good, okay. Robbie can sleep well tonight.
So here's this.
Is this,
Yeah.
question, is this project, Fifth Street project, similar to the Highway 61 project where, I mean, I know we're selling bonds for 1.8 million, but what's the actual cost? You know what I'm saying? Are we, as we move ahead and they're asking for draws of money,
Yeah,
is there,
we have it contracted, I mean, the county,
the county's running that contract?
they put it out for bid, have already awarded the bid.
Okay.
So we have an amount that we know
That,
the project will cost.
okay.
And, you know, there may be change orders from time to time.
Well, I saw a lot of dynamiting and stuff going on, so I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
that was utility related or,
Yes, and it was
Road related.
anticipated, and it's also related to storm sewer work that the county's doing. So
okay.
Oh, is that what I heard today? Could you hear that?
Could have, I don't know.
What? No. Okay, then it's still just another noise today.
Oh, they were,
Okay.
All
it's in here today.
Next up is Resolution 2023-12, a MnDot contract related to the Community Connector Cooperative. Okay, that's too many Cs.
It really is.
Construction.
I love it. It's hilarious.
You can see the language in the resolution at the very end of the contract, right after the set of plans. It actually looks like this when we've changed it into our format, but it's the same language.
They have a maintenance easement.
So basically, we're gonna take over the pipe.
If you just want to look at that set of plans, yes, Exhibit A. You can see the would you call that chartreuse line box that goes around the pipe, offers an easement to do maintenance activities, and it's a generous one. And if you'll recall, we looked very specifically at the question of, will we get into this pipe when we install the footings for the community connector? And the answer was no. And then we also said, if we need to go back and replace this pipe, will we get into the footings? There's both directions. When we install the footings, is it a problem? When we fix the pipe, is it a problem? And the answer is no. We're assured of that. MnDOT, however, doesn't want to give up their easement without some other answer. So they're not going to settle for a smaller easement, but they were more than happy to talk to us about us taking over the maintenance of the pipe instead. So then that box, the easement, will disappear. And we'll be responsible for the blue shaded section of pipe then that goes to that catch basin in Highway 61 at the curbside.
Okay.
It's a new catch basin. It's not new pipe, but it is concrete pipe and it's in good condition. It was inspected prior to the project. And it's the sort of pipe that I wouldn't expect us to have to look at again for 50 years.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion for Resolution 2023-12?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other questions or concerns?
The title on the blank line is City Administrator, by the way. You're authorizing Tracy and I to sign the contract with the resolution.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That is all of our official business, council and staff reports.
Guess I'll go first. Park board meeting, we just basically approved a bunch of special event applications moving forward for the summer. Singing in the, busking in the park, 4th of July fireworks, Stars of the North Music Festival and Fisherman's Picnic, Lions Club, Fish Burger Stand, Harbor Park. We already talked about some of that at our meeting at the Fish Burger Stand, but And in new business, they've started the work now at the Community Connection. I see yesterday they started digging, and I know they had their equipment staged the first part of the week, but now they're actually doing some work up there. So that project is underway. Let's see. Oh, the master plan. We talked a little bit about the master plan. There is a public survey that's available online. Is that just on our city website, or do they have to go to surveymonkey.com to find that?
The link is on our website.
Okay, the link is on our website, so the public is invited to answer some questions about the master plan that's being conducted for the rec park. And I think,
It's also at the library if you don't want to take it on a computer, you can go take it.
oh yeah, okay, they can do it at the library
And here at City Hall.
and City Hall, okay. And did they schedule the first public park board stakeholder groups? I don't think,
In process.
they haven't scheduled the first public meeting yet, no.
I don't think so.
No, it's in the process, okay. But there will be an opportunity for the public to come in and engage on any questions that they may have about what's being done. And there's also been some work that's getting done by Crawford Excavating on the 8th Avenue Stormwater Pond. That's right above the rec park. That's being worked on right now. It's been being worked on for the last couple weeks, actually. And so that looks like that's coming along pretty well. For the rec park. The other meeting I had was, we did have a PUC meeting, and we approved replacing the roof on the water pumping building that we have down by Lake Superior. That roof is going to get replaced. And then we also had a tour of the building, which was kind of interesting to go in and look at how we all get our water to drink in Grand Marais. It's quite a process and operation.
And Craig, where is it? Like I just,
The building is located right
Yeah.
down by the brand new boat launch in the bottom
Okay.
of the 8th Avenue, I guess the bottom of right by the parking lot, that big concrete building you see down there, that is our water
okay,
inlet that draws water in from Lake Superior.
okay.
From there, it gets its treatment, and it gets pushed up to the water tower and the other 2 tanks above the hospital.
Okay. Cool.
So it pretty much covers the 2 meetings that I went to.
I had a meeting with Active Living and Steering, and we talked about the pedestrian plan a little bit. We're ultimately going to be talking more about it at our next meeting. And the only other thing was the Gitchigami is going to have some maintenance done on it either this year or next year from the infrastructure bill.
So whereabouts?
Some of the older parts, so I believe it's going to be up the hill on along 61.
Okay.
I believe so. That's about it.
I haven't had anything. I've got a board meeting tomorrow for the North House at noon. So next meeting I'll update on that. And I missed the last planning meeting. But that was it.
Yeah, so we had the variance that we had, the Walters variance, but then we also talked about some of the ideas that you kind of brought forward to the council, and they got sent over to planning and zoning. And we went through them. What I wanted to focus on was the fill issue, but that was not to be. It seemed, I think we came down with the dumpsters. Was that what most folks wanted to go for? They kind of felt the garbage cans, I think we took off the list as being something that we can deal with in terms of licensing and that kind of thing. But dumpsters did, and parking, I don't know, that wasn't taken up by the group, but it's not off. It's just what is going to be our priority. And I believe we went with the dumpsters, like making sure that people have space, that it's not forgotten on their property for their dumpsters and any other, LP tanks and things like that. So that was.
Oh, so broadening it beyond just
Well,
dumpsters?
I mean,
or-
that, as we were talking, those were other
Okay.
things that came up, like, making sure that people do realize that, yes, you're gonna generate garbage, so you've gotta have a place for that to be, and that should not be in the right of way, it should be on your property somewhere.
Yeah, I think that the broadening was about, because our downtown zone has no setback requirements, you can build a building that goes lot line to lot line and not leave space for all of the other things if you don't think of them.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna help people think of them.
Alright.
Okay.
Mike and I were at a meeting called by the county with Molly Hickens and Pat Eliason, Ann Sullivan and James Yorkie to talk about the new cannabis changes. And they want to start taking some action. I had to leave a little early on it. Then just today, I got a note, Fillmore County apparently already has quite an extensive, well, I read it, quite an extensive ordinance coming through, so that was one of the samples. Their main concern seems to be making sure that underage sales and youth and all of that around it, but there's just so many issues yet that have to come, decided from the state. And some of what they want to regulate, I'm not even sure we can regulate, like the lower products, lower level products.
Okay.
And I really think we've got some stuff to do and listen to other people before we can be super action. The state won't be ready for any licensing. Licensing has to be done by the state, and that's in 2025. All that I had read was that we can register existing sellers now of the lower level products. That I remember reading
I
explicitly.
don't think we do the lower ones. I think it's just cannabis and we have to register them. And that won't be something that we'll have to do for a year while the state figures out how to do retail licensing.
Yeah, I read something different on that in one of those stories. But it doesn't matter. That's the whole point right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's got different stuff going on, and
Wait
it's
and
like,
see.
yeah.
Wait and see. Got it.
Yeah, so I don't know where this will go. And then with the EDA, we've got to focus on Taconite Harbor. So I went to one meeting last week with some of the EDA folks down to meet with Minnesota Power and get where they're at with that. And then last night we went out to the Schroeder Township group and kind of presented to them what we've discovered about federal and state funds available for coal plant revitalization. And we had a joint leadership meeting. I don't think, Ben, you're not on the list yet. You're on the list, I think, Aaron. Craig is from before. I don't remember if your name's on that for that meeting. So one of the things I said is we need to clean up the list because it's super dated. It's got people that don't need to be there. I think we're missing some of the council, the whole deal. So that's one of my to-dos is get a note over to Jana. And I guess that's it. Now it's Patrick then for Fifth Street.
So I met with, make sure I hear myself take these off. I met with Jacob Baker today, and he told me that the current layout of how the closures are probably going to be in place until mid to late July. They're blasting for shallow bedrock that they found near 2nd Street. And I'm just like kind of, I have a loose grasp on this, but they're taking houses off of the sewer main temporarily for about up to like 6 hours is what he's saying. Most of the length of the pipe can handle that before it's a problem for the house. They'll blast in that short space and then to break up the rock, dig it out, and then move on and reconnect them after that. So they're kind of, they're just moving slowly from, right now they're about at 2nd Avenue, and over the next couple weeks, they're gonna be slowly moving up to 2nd Street up to 3rd Street. And that's kind of where it'll be for now. And then the only other thing is I invited Jacob to participate in our weekly update, so he's agreed to do that throughout the project and includes photos and an update every Friday. So that said, just letting people know that you can sign up for the city's weekly update on our website and get notified in your email inbox, just things that are going on around the city.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And my water is back on, just so everybody knows. Don't worry.
Because they're not like hooking up the final pipes as they move up yet, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. I didn't think so. Did you have anything, Mike?
I do not.
All right.
How's your water, Mike?
What, I tell you what, the hose, where the temporary water's connected, that hose bib's never had so much water pressure. You gotta be careful watering the garden over there. Otherwise, it's completely unnoticeable, which is terrific.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I think with that, we are done. Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a good night.